Hello, and welcome to the Astoria Podcast, where we're getting to know our neighbors and those who help our community thrive. I'm your host, Bree Matan. In this episode, I'm talking with songwriter and children's book author Ray Miner, who does not live in Astoria. I know what you're thinking. Bree, this is the Astoria Podcast. What the hell are you doing? So, let me explain. If it wasn't for Ray, this podcast probably wouldn't exist. You see, many years ago, long before I met my husband and moved to Astoria, Ray hired me to record some of his original Christmas songs. While I had sung in bars and coffee shops, I had never set foot in a real recording studio before, and it changed my life. That experience made me fall in love with the audio process, and I started recording classes with Mark Rubel, who was the audio engineer for our Christmas album. 4 years later, when I moved to New York and started working in film, it was my love of audio that helped me shine in the workplace. All of this has led me here, making the Astoria Podcast, where I get to share meaningful stories with you. Around this time of year, I think about people in my life who may not know how much they impacted my journey, and I'm trying to do better about letting those people know how special they are to me. Ray is definitely one of those people. In this episode, you'll hear me and Ray talk about making an album together and how music transcends generational boundaries. I hope you enjoy listening in while I chat with a very dear friend. So yeah, Ray, thanks for coming on the show.
Okay, well, thanks for asking. Thanks for inviting me.
This is, I should tell the listeners that it's a weird thing. First of all, for me to talk about myself. I am not like a seasoned podcast host, but I think it is important for listeners to get to know who I am, as well as the other people that I interview. Right. And so I thought, for a holiday episode, not everyone can say that they have a Christmas album.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's been this weird little fun fact that I've been able to carry with me through my life. And on more than one occasion, I have gone into like a job interview or just meeting someone new, and they'll say, "So I Googled you, and do you have a Christmas album?" and I have to say, yes, I do. Yeah. And it's so bizarre, but in some ways it feels weird to say, yes, I have a Christmas album, because in my mind, it's your album and your songs that you wrote, and I just got the incredible privilege to record them with you.
Well, thank you. I look at it as our album, and because, I wrote the songs, but I had to find a singer to sing them, and we'll get into that story about how this came about. But I've told you before, I can listen to you sing all night. I just love your voice.
Oh.
And, I pull you up on YouTube from time to time and just listen to you sing. And it's just, the way that it came about and the end result, what we have to listen to, I still think it is one of the best Christmas albums I've heard in ages and ages and ages.
Yeah.
But a lot of that is thanks to the singer.
Oh.
So that's you.
Well, you are very kind. Tell me, obviously I somewhat know how it came to be, but, over the years I've lost the details of that. So can you just tell me how it started?
Yeah. As I don't know, you probably knew at the time, I don't know if you still remember, but I had this other person lined up to sing the album. I had written some Christmas songs, and I wanted to I had enough of them. I have a half dozen. I thought, well, that's enough that if we add some public domain songs, we have a full-length album. Mm-hmm. So I was still in education at the time, and there was this girl who I knew at that school who was a really good singer, had a nice voice, and she had gone off to college. So I think she was a freshman at the time. She was finishing up her freshman year. And I got in touch with her mom and said, hey, this is what I'm wanting to do. And so that led to me getting in touch with the girl, and we had things set up. We had it all set up. And I was going to start recording in May or June after her semester ended. Mm-hmm. And so we had it all set. So it came time to start recording. And all of a sudden, she was just a no-show.
Oh,
She disappeared. I mean, she was gone.
wow.
She wouldn't answer my phone calls. She didn't answer my voicemails, text messages, nothing.
Wow.
It was like she no longer existed, and I couldn't find her. I didn't know what was happening. So then it got to be July. I think it was the 4th of July, and I had already thought, well, this isn't going to work. You know, it's too late. But if I had to line someone up and the musicians and the studio time, by now you're looking at it's getting too close to Christmas to do this year. And I was lamenting that fact on the 4th of July with a lady who was over at our house. It was a friend that my wife used to work with, and they remained buddies. And so her name is Eileen. And
Eileen, yes.
You remember Eileen?
Yeah. I
Okay.
love Eileen. I haven't chatted with her in so long, but she
Okay.
was such a dear friend of mine. But anyway,
Yeah,
I don't want to ruin the story. Go ahead.
Well, it was Eileen who was over. And I was telling Eileen about this. And Eileen worked at the Champaign Library. And she had something to do with either lining up music or somewhere there was a connection there that, you know, they would have acts, music come in. And she said, well, you know, I was telling her about losing the singer. And I said, yeah, I'd like to find another singer, but it's too late. She said, well, you know, I work with a girl who is always singing, and she's got a really nice voice. And so I said, well, and she said, she's got stuff on YouTube. I said, really? Well, that perked me up because now we can listen to you.
Yeah.
You know, we could find something. And I said, well, let's see if we can hear her.
Yeah.
So we sat there and she pulled you up. And I don't know, it was Brianna Stoughton. And I listened to 4 or 5 songs and I thought, man, this gal can really sing. I really like this girl's voice. I thought of the songs that I had written, because not everyone can sing everything, and not everyone is it's just not their style.
Yeah.
But this was more like a singer-songwriter type of thing, and that's what you were. You were good at that.
Yeah.
I thought, well, I'm going to see if this girl is interested. So I asked Eileen to get in touch with you and tell you what was going on and just kind of feel it out and see if you thought you might be interested in doing something like this. And she said, okay, well, she works in the maintenance department.
Right.
I thought, well, I'm going to pluck this girl out of the maintenance department at the public library, and we're going to do a CD. And so that's what happened. She went and talked to you, and you know, you're going to know more of that part of it. But eventually what happened was you and I got together. I remember you came up to the house and we sat down and we talked about it. And I kind of mapped out what I wanted to do, what I had, what the goal was, what the plan was. And when I said, this is all on me, you know, it's I'm paying for this. It's not going to cost you anything.
Yeah.
And I remember you saying, I was wondering about that. But I would have been too. I would have been in the exact same position you were. I thought, where's this guy coming from? What's he getting at? What's gonna happen?
Yeah, well, because there's a lot of scams, you know, like people like,
know.
oh, you want to be famous?
I
you
know.
gotta, you know, and I didn't have any money. I worked in the maintenance department.
It was, I know. So it was just one of those things that Eileen happened to be here. We happened to be talking about it. Timing.
Yeah.
As I've gone through life, I've just kind of thought I've reached the point where I think timing is almost all of the battle. It's almost everything. If it isn't time, it ain't going to happen.
Right.
But the time was right. And you were in a position where you could do this. I was in a position where I was looking for someone, and we kind of got together and meshed, and everything. You know, we didn't clash. It wasn't like we just hated each other's guts. But you go into the studio and you make good music.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that at all. We liked each other. We got along.
Yeah.
You did a good job with the songs. We worked out nice arrangements, and you know, we just took it from there a step at a time, and it evolved. And you know, if you have any memories, just throw them in too, because as it went along, we started getting together to practice.
Yeah. Well, I will just jump in and say, like, I do remember Eileen coming to me at the library, and it was a very tender moment in my life because my mom had passed away.
Yeah.
And something I was going to grief counseling at the time, and I was working at the library. I worked at the library for 6 years as a janitor. And I think what Eileen is referring to is oftentimes, and not only would I sing and put stuff up on YouTube, but oftentimes I would come to work at 3 a.m. Because I would get there super early to vacuum and clean the restrooms when no one was around. And so you have this huge, beautiful, the Champaign Public Library is just like made out of bamboo. So it's this beautiful reverberation throughout the whole building. And of course, you're in the building all alone. And so you can just sing, and it sounds like you're in this concert hall. And of course, you have all of these dense library stacks that kind of like absorb the sound also. So like, I would just be dusting and wiping off tables for hours in the morning, all alone singing. And then, of course, slowly but surely, the librarians would come in. And, it just got to the point where I didn't care if anyone heard me. I had work to do, and I was going to enjoy it.
That's the way to be.
And, and Eileen obviously is so kind. I was on Facebook at the time, and so I'm sure she saw me post things there. But, going through the grief of losing my mother, I often would sing late into the night. A lot of those videos that are on YouTube are probably recorded at 2 a.m. just because I couldn't sleep. And I was living in an apartment at the time that surprisingly wouldn't annoy the neighbors if I played music at all hours. And so I would just record and put it up there just like as like a healing thing. Yeah. And I didn't think anything would come of it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I remember that time, and it was really a tough time for you. You were going through that. And one of the songs that you did that I just listened to, I can't tell you how many times I've listened to the song you sing it on YouTube. It's that Emmylou Harris song, Prayer in Open D.
Oh, yes.
There's a valley of sorrow in my soul, where every night I hear the thunder roll, like the sound of a distant gun, over all the damage I have done.
And because there's just so much emotion, such feeling there.
Yeah.
And when you sing that, and you said that was what was on your mind as you were sitting there singing was your thoughts of your mom.
It was. And that song, we've discussed it before, but it is that like sometimes it's like lightning in a bottle. Like I did that song in one take. And I had to get it out.
Yeah.
It's not perfect. But there's times when you perform and you just play the chords and you sing it and it's technically excellent. And then there's times when your soul needs to get out.
Yeah.
And like there's some singers like Aretha Franklin. I think she's one of the people who just picks up a microphone and her soul comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have, maybe with years of practice, I would be able to tap into that, but I've only been able to tap into it a few times, Yeah. I'm curious if you've ever had that experience.
There have been times, when that happens, and it's kind of like you're in this zone.
Yeah.
And you're in it. And I don't know if I can explain it any better than that, just being in a zone where there are no distractions, there's nothing else, it's just you and the music and a song that you're playing. And there could be nobody listening, or there could be 100 people listening, and it doesn't matter. You're doing at that moment you're doing what you want to do, and you were totally immersed in it.
Yeah.
And you're just so focused, and it's just coming out.
I love that.
And I don't think you can say, okay, I'm gonna do this now.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just maybe sometimes it comes there when you least expect it.
Yeah.
But it does happen from time to time.
Does that happen a lot when you're writing?
Sometimes it does. Sometimes when I was writing, I'd be in a mood to play a certain kind of a song. And I would think, I can't think of a song that fits this mood that I'm in. I'm in this certain kind of mood, and I can't think of a song. So I would just say, I'm going to write one. And I would just write a song to fit that mood.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you, I don't think I've ever recorded any of them. And I can't tell you now maybe which ones they were. There's one if I thought about it, I can remember one. Just offhand, I can't, scrolling through, I can't just boom off the top of my head say what it was. But yeah, it happened occasionally from time to time.
How long have you been writing?
I got a late start because I know some people start writing, they're 16 years old. I recorded this song when I was 17, all that kind of thing. I didn't start writing songs until I was probably in my mid-20s because it took me a long time to realize that poets starve. And after I realized that poets starve, I started writing songs. And then a few years down the road, I realized that songwriters starve also. So there's no limit to starvation. And but I like the songwriting.
Yeah.
I'd always liked writing. And I came from this musical background, not so much my parents, but my family. My great uncles were all musicians. Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey circuses, Hagenbeck Wallace Circus, they were in the band. They played in vaudeville. They were in army bands, went across Europe. I would grow up listening to these stories that they told. And you couldn't mention a town like east of the Rocky Mountains that they either hadn't played in, driven through, or passed by. They'd say, oh, well, remember we were with such and such, trooping with so-and-so. So I always had this love of music because my dad inherited that. He wasn't a musician, but he inherited that love of music. He always had music playing, and it didn't matter what kind. He would play. God, he'd play anywhere from yodeling to country to rock and roll.
Yeah.
He liked music and he played it. So we grew up listening to it all the time. And so I always figured that was just part of it, part of me. And so I was able to blend the love of music eventually with the writing, and songs are what started coming out. And I did that when I was in my mid to late 20s is when I really started thinking, hey, this is something that maybe I could do. I started writing some things that I started liking and that I wanted to hear again, which is the key. Anyone can write a song that someone will sit and listen to, but what you want to do is write a song that someone wants to listen to again.
Right.
And when you start writing songs that people want to hear again, then you feel like you've gotten somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's what I felt like I had started doing at that point as my late 20s. So
I love that. We're going to take a short break, but when we return, Ray talks about recording in the studio, and we discuss how music transcends generations if we are willing to evolve. Stay tuned. And we're back with songwriter Ray Miner explaining how we got started with the recording process.
We had to line up studio time. I mean, a lot of things that you have to do, line up musicians, but a lot of times Mark would he knew the musicians.
Well, just so the listeners know, this is Mark Rubel, who was an audio engineer at the time that we recorded this. This was in Champaign, Illinois, in the Midwest, at his studio, Pogo Studio, which has since closed because he moved to Nashville to teach at Blackbird Academy, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But I guess at the time, tell me, how did you meet Mark? How did all of that relationship come to be?
Well, that was, I had started recording some of my songs that I'd written just in my voice, maybe 12, 13 years before we did the Christmas album. So I knew him, and I had played with some of the musicians before. They'd been in the studio for me. And so I got in touch with Mark because I had done a whole CD, and then I had done some single releases over the years since that time. And I got in touch with Mark again and said, hey, Mark, I got this project in mind. And he said, okay, what you got? And I said, well, I'm looking to do a Christmas album, because at the time when you and I got together, it was, July was moving along. But I thought, if we hurry on this, we can maybe get this thing out this Christmas season. So I asked him about that. I said, here's what I'm wanting to do. What's it look like from a time standpoint? He said, I think we can do it. So I kind of figured how many sessions I would need, and we just kind of started booking. I said, well, let's see what we get done in this 4 or 5 hour session. And then, we just kind of went from there. He said, I've got time that we can get you booked in here. So we did that. He lined up the musicians. He said, I know who we can get for some of these. And I said, well, some of these guys, I'd like to see if we can get some of these people that I had played with before. And I think we were able to. They were a lot of the people that Mark knew too. So we got the musicians, studio time. You and I had worked out arrangements on the songs, which you and I don't know if you remember this part, but I had written the songs, of course, in keys that I could sing. And when we started playing them, not a single one of those songs was in a key that you could sing, sing it in. So you and I had to go to work and just make all these different arrangements out of these songs. We had to find the key, and I'm not a music theory person, so we just kind of had to feel our way through all this. But we got eventually the keys that you could sing these things in, that you were comfortable with, and I kind of had to relearn all of the guitar playing because that rote memory and that muscle memory just wanted to go to certain chords, and I think, no, I can't go there. So it was different, but we went into the studio and started in, and I don't know how many sessions it took, but and there were some parts it was a struggle. Some of them just really flowed, and we would share ideas. You would have an idea, say, hey, what do you think if I do it this way? And I'd say, okay, let's try it. And, there were some things that we did as we had rehearsed them, some things that we changed a little bit. There was one thing I know we were really struggling on one song that didn't have an intro for it. And the drummer jumped in and said, how about if I just do this? He gave a whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
The whatever worked.
What drummers do.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, he did his thing. And that served as the intro, and we jumped in. So, with stuff like that, just things that you encounter in the studio when you're recording, and you've got, instead of having two people, me and you, all of a sudden we've got 4 or 5. And, what works for 3 or 4 of you may not be working for that other person. Well, let's try this, or can I slip this in? So we just did that. We just kind of rolled with the flow, and I don't remember any real big stumbling blocks. I think the biggest stumbling block in the whole recording was my guitar playing. Mark, almost after almost every song, Mark would say, "Ray, tune your guitar." I said, okay. I don't know that I would do anything to it. It sounded okay to me, but I would tweak it. But Mark had that ear.
He took care of us. He made sure that we recorded the best that we could possibly capture.
Yeah, he did. And I know the drummer got so mad at me one time because I have a tendency to pick up the tempo as I go through a song. I'll start out at 113 and end at 119. It's like, how did we just incrementally just pick this up so much? And I don't. The drummer one time just laid his sticks down, got up, and walked out.
I didn't remember that.
He went in to talk to Mark, and he stood there for about 5 minutes. And I thought, he's in there just chewing and jawing about me because I kept wanting to start racing, and I wasn't following his tempo, his drumming. So he came back and he said, look, do it this way. And so I did it that way, even though to me, that was about the most uninteresting way I could do it. But, okay. I did it that way, the whole song.
Yeah.
And it worked. I don't even remember, Brianna, which song it was.
I don't know either.
It was one of them.
Yeah.
And so we got through it.
Yeah.
And it was fine. It met his approval. I thought, okay, this is okay. This sounds good.
I love, one of the things I love about you, I'm sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
But there is, and it's something obviously this was the first time I had ever stepped foot in a professional recording studio. Mm-hmm. And you, as the producer and the songwriter, like, you don't carry this big ego with you, and it created a sense of collaboration that I honestly, I don't even remember that tense moment you just talked about. Like, the whole time I was in there, it felt so easy and so Right. And like being an inexperienced recording artist, I honestly am surprised I had the confidence to say, oh, should we try this? Like looking back, I probably should have just kept quiet and been grateful for the opportunity. But like it does, like it's a testament to who you are as a person, in that your ego doesn't get in the way of collaborating, because like I think that's one of the reasons the album resonates with me, because there's several songs. I want to list all the songs specifically that you wrote, but each song kind of has its own feeling, and I kind of like that, because the holidays in and of themselves have different feelings. Sometimes they're hectic, sometimes they're more reverent, sometimes, and a lot of the songs that you've written capture individual holiday feelings. And I think because you're willing to be flexible and collaborate with really talented musicians and recording artists, like, I feel like that shines through.
Well, yeah, I think so. The thing that I like to do with this album and every other album or a CD or a song is, when you're in the studio with talent, just turn them loose and let them do their thing. Say, hey, that's how you really run across or find some interesting sounds. And, I write the songs, but it's the musicians who bring the songs to life. And if you try to hold them back and say, okay, this is what we're going to do, this is the way I want you to play, they know more about playing a guitar than I do. They know a lot more about playing a trumpet than I do. They know a lot more about playing a bass, the drums, than I do, piano. Yeah. So, hey, just draw on your experience and your talent, and let's just see what we can come up with.
Yeah.
And that's what I like to do. And it's nice to hear you say that comes through, because I think it does. If you give these people the chance to just run with it and see what you get, you can get some interesting stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it worked. And as far as the songs go, there are 6 songs out there that I wrote that we put on there, and I don't think there are no 2 of those songs sound the same.
Right.
When you hear each song, you're not saying, oh, that sounds like the other 2 songs or the 2 songs before it. There's none of that. So that's another thing that I liked about that, when it came out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, real quick, I just want to list the songs that you wrote that are on the album. Okay. And I have It's Snowing on Christmas Eve, Santa's Making His Rounds Tonight,
right?
Sweet Baby Child in a Manger, Christmas on the Beach This Year, The Christmas Tree, and I Like the Way I Feel This Time of Year.
Right.
So there's 10 tracks on the album, but those are the specific songs that you wrote.
Right.
I'm curious, is there a favorite of yours?
Well, gosh, I have different parts of the songs that are my favorite. I think one of the songs that has the best lyrics in it is The Christmas Tree.
I hear the jingling bells begin. It's the holiday time again. Another year nearly gone, how can it be?
But I don't think that's necessarily the best song.
Okay.
Christmas on the Beach This Year, I really like.
It's the most fun song to me.
It is. It's the most fun song on there.
It's Christmas, even where it doesn't snow. It's warm here. I've left behind the cold, the sunshine. Feels warm enough to tan, and the white stuff that I'm walking through is sand.
But then, there's Sweet Baby Child in a Manger is a religious Christmas song.
Sweet baby child in a manger, a humble, unannounced, unheralded birth.
Santa's Making His Rounds Tonight is like something that more you could sing with the little kids, that they would kind of get into.
Right.
He's up in the air and then down on the ground, visiting every little village and town, doing his work without making a sound. Santa's making his rounds tonight.
It's Snowing on Christmas Eve I like because that brings back memories of just Christmases past on Christmas Eve when you like to just see the snow.
Yeah. It's snowing on Christmas Eve. Hearts young and old are smiling. Stockings are hung, carols have been sung, and it's snowing on Christmas Eve.
And I like the way I feel this time of year. It's just so many people just seem to like the way they're feeling that time of year.
I look and see it's Christmas time again. Gifts to buy and greeting cards to send. Smiles are warm and friendly as Christmas Day draws near. I like the way I feel this time of year.
Okay, I have to say, similar to you, I like each one of these songs for different reasons, but the one that I find that I listen to on repeat is I like the way I feel this time of year. Because you're right, it totally captures the feeling of the holidays. And this past Christmas, I had just had my daughter. She was only 3 months old at the time, and I was trying to get out and get as much exercise as possible. But of course, it was December.
Yeah.
And I would walk around the neighborhood. Astoria has some really beautiful light displays, especially over by Astoria Park. And I listened to this song on repeat a lot. And so it's now sort of in my brain become a song that I sort of associate with my neighborhood a little bit. And there's a phrase in it that I feel specifically has new meaning for me since I've had my daughter. And it says, "Memories of the season remain from long ago. They mingle with the wonder of all I've yet to know."
Yeah.
And like, obviously when I recorded that, I just sang it because it was what was on the page in front of me.
Right.
But now that I've experienced a first Christmas with my daughter, I'm starting to sort of see what the line means of the wonder of all I've yet to know. And so that song has become very meaningful to me, obviously, when I recorded it unknowingly. But so I'm a little bit curious, like, when you wrote those words, you know, what were you feeling? What were you thinking?
It's interesting that you bring up that particular line, because that line I really wasn't sure about. I thought, I don't even know if people are going to get this or understand it, or if it's even any good, or what I should do with it, if I just change it. And I talked to my wife. I said, "Listen to this. What do you think of this line?" And she said, I think it's fine. It fits. I think it's okay." And so I've always questioned that. I've always wondered about it. But that is what you said is exactly it. The wonder of all I've yet to know. There's whole life, this whole world is in front of you.
Yeah.
And what's going to happen? I don't know. I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. I don't know what next Christmas is going to bring.
Yeah.
But right now, I like the way I feel. And, we're just going to enjoy it. And, the future is going to come along.
Yeah.
What's it going to hold in store?
Yeah.
And that's kind of it.
Well, and it's something, you don't realize this as a kid, and I've seen it posted on the internet since, of like, the magic of Christmas is actually mothers. It's mothers who are making the magic of Christmas. They are exhausted. They are making all of the memories you have of Christmas is your mother making those memories for you. And I, now that I'm a mother myself, I am sort of realizing that is the case. I think fathers also play a role in that. Yeah. But like, mothers.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. But there is, maybe it was different in your house, but like, my mom, she made sure there was presents. She made sure the tree was decorated. She made sure there was Christmas dinner. She made, the big tradition growing up at my house was we opened up presents on Christmas Eve, which our friends didn't really usually get to do.
Okay, right.
And then that was the one night a year we were allowed to stay up as late as we wanted, playing with our toys.
Yes.
And of course, Mom and Dad went into the bedroom for their own alone time. But we just got to stay up late.
Yeah.
We got to eat junk food. And then we crashed wherever we landed. Like we would just sleep on pallets on the floor.
Yeah.
And then at some point, Mom would sneak up in the night. Who knows? We probably only could stay up till like 1 a.m. at the latest.
Yeah.
And then Mom would sneak out of the bedroom and she would fill up all of our stockings. And then Christmas morning was stockings.
Ooh.
And it was just... And then it was like it was all over again.
Yeah.
Christmas morning, it was like, now what's in our stocking? And
Right.
then we would eat leftovers. And it was basically just 2 days of family time. And it was the most joyous of the holidays. And,
Yeah.
now I have my own daughter in a small apartment in New York City. We don't really have room for a Christmas tree, although for her first Christmas, I made a really beautiful construction paper tree that I could hang on the wall.
Right.
And it might become a new tradition in our house because that's all the room we have. I have this new, going back to the song, I have all of these memories, these really joyful memories from my childhood, and I want to make sure that my daughter gets those.
Right.
And, but there is so much unknown. Like my Christmas memories that I make for her simply because my situation is different than the way I grew up in the Midwest.
Yeah.
Her Christmases are going to be different. And I wonder, what is she going to latch onto? What is she going to remember?
I know.
I'm curious, what do you remember from your Christmases?
Well, you had mentioned moms. It's moms who make Christmas. Mom was the person, she was probably the glue, held everything together. But my dad, I had a dad who, honest to God, thought he was Santa Claus.
Aww.
And so it was, when Christmas rolled around, it really was a family thing because Mom was doing the wrapping and all of this kind of thing and, knew what everyone needed or wanted.
Yeah.
knew what the sizes were, what the interests were, what their favorite kind of books were. I mean, she knew all that stuff.
Right.
And Dad was Santa Claus who had toted over his shoulder. He would bake. He would bake things for people, and I mean, everyone jokes about the 5-pound fruitcake.
Uh-huh.
He actually did it. He would make these things and give them to people. It was like they sit there with this. What am I going to do with this?
Yeah.
But divinity, that's what they were like. They would just do this to fudge. My God. So I think of Christmas as a lot of eating. And just having a great time of anticipation.
Yeah.
And because you knew what it was all going to be. And that was, getting together with family. I grew up with a lot of cousins. My wife just marvels at this because she had one cousin. I had like 27. And so, we would get together with the different families and, especially on Christmas or the time Christmas Eve, you would go around, Aunt Clancy, we'd go Aunt Almeida, we just whistle stop to the different relatives' houses and see how they were doing. And then Christmas, a lot of them would just come by. So it was just a real big family time for us.
Right.
And it's kind of what we have done with our kids and now with our grandkids. We're always checking in with each other, stopping by, getting together on Christmas Day, things like that.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fun time.
Yeah, a lot of my family is still in the Midwest, and so Christmases, they look very different, and I always I miss that,
Yeah.
Since my mom has passed away, Christmases are very different. It's
right.
Everyone sort of does their individual family things. So it's similar to what you said. Like the moms are the glue that keeps it together. But it's kind of now that I have my daughter, like you carry those memories and you carry that spirit with you. And, I think of my mother a lot during the holidays. And, inevitably her memory is going to be woven into my child's Christmas.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of a beautiful remembrance and carrying forward in a way that probably AJ will not even know that, that is being carried forward. And but that's okay.
Yeah, well, you can tell her. She'll learn through the stories you tell her.
Yeah. Well, and I honestly like sharing music in general. Like, I don't want to be the type of mom who like forces my child to do certain things.
Mm-hmm.
But I have already noticed that AJ loves music.
Mm-hmm.
She literally, like, she's 10 months old, so she's still sort of learning how to self-soothe. But like at nighttime, when she's trying to put herself to sleep a little bit, she'll start humming to herself.
Really? Okay.
It's the cutest little thing.
Yeah.
I wish I could just capture it in a recording, but it's just, she loves like dancing to the beat of music. She hasn't walked yet, but when she can stand up and hold on to something, she'll bounce to the beat of music. And Eric, he studied music in college, and so like I kind of have a more informal music history. He has a much more formal history.
Yeah.
And then I have my mother who used to sing. I'm pretty sure there are relatives on Eric's side of the family who are involved in music. So I feel like my daughter comes from a long line of music and music lovers. And I hope that is, if I can pass on anything to her, I hope that whether she does anything professionally with music or not, I hope that she learns that music is like a comfort, and it's a way to tap into her own emotions and her soul and communicate in a way that sometimes words fail.
Yeah. It can become an integral part of your life. It can be, if you don't have to do it professionally, but it can be something you can just totally immerse yourself in and just use it to meet any mood that you might have that you feel like you're in. And it's just neat. It's just a neat thing about music.
Yeah.
There's something there for everyone, regardless of what your interests are. You can find something in the realm of music that you can take out and hold it, claim as your own.
Yeah.
And say, this is me. What I'm listening to right now, that's me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aww.
Yeah.
No, and this is wonderful. This is exactly the type of stuff I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's first of all, I already knew about you that you have a creator's spirit about you. Like you've done many types of art in your life, and I guess like in your lifetime, your creativity, I'm sure, has evolved and changed, and your life has informed your art. And I'm curious if you would speak to that.
Well, just as you go through, as I've gone through, the music has changed, but I was a rock and roller as a youngster, and I still like rock and roll. And but from a writing standpoint, I don't know. I've always been kind of on the mellow side. Country music isn't necessarily my favorite genre, but it seems like when I sat down to write, a lot of it came out as country-ish, and not the old twangy country that Nashville used to be known for, but still on the countryside. And I don't know that that's really changed. I think if anything has evolved, it's as I've gotten older, I've become more in love with the sea. Growing up in the Midwest, you are about as landlocked as you could be. Yeah. And I mean, the Wabash River was the body of water that we that we had to look at. Yeah. And when I was growing up, and because of that, as I kind of evolved toward liking water more and more, the songwriting changed to kind of go along with that. So I call them my water songs. So, but anyway, just the writing as kind of evolves with life. I wrote a song, Oh So Many Ways, and it's about how love changes.
I don't know if there's a way that I could love you any more than what I'm loving you today. Every thought about tomorrow has you in it, and I find you still can take my breath away.
Donna, my wife and I have been married now for over 40 years, so we've been together for a while. Yeah. And there's a lot of stuff that isn't the same as it was when we were first married. Attitudes change, the interests change. A lot of things change. And that song kind of reflects that. But at the end, what is important is through all the changes, we're still together and we still like each other. And life is like that. And I guess songwriting is like that too. I don't know that if you don't change with songwriting and you're writing the same things 30 years later, it's going to be pretty uninteresting.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to say, God, I like this guy when he started, but everything sounds the same, you know?
Right.
And I don't know how you do that. I don't know that it's just something that just naturally evolves. That's what it's done with me. It's just kind of naturally evolved. And I don't even, I don't know where it was, what question you even asked that got me started on this, but that's as far as.
Well, no, you answered it. The evolution, I think, is what keeps the art fresh.
Yeah.
And there's some people who are like, kind of get annoyed, like when an artist comes out on stage and they don't sing all their hits and they sing like, a bunch of their new stuff. And sometimes there is something comforting about hearing all the hits, but like, it is, I really love hearing like what is new. Right. And like what's coming out now. And Paul Simon I'm a huge fan
I like him.
Of Paul Simon. And he's someone who has reinvented himself so many times over the years. But I like to hear what stage he's in, and it's almost like when you invest in the songwriter and not necessarily just get in love with one particular sound, you get a whole plethora of meaning from their work.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you mentioned Paul Simon because I'm back of the age when, I was at that young, impressionable age when I heard Paul Simon and Garfunkel. And that was the group. They were the guys who got me interested in picking up a guitar and starting to play and starting to write.
Me too. But that just shows the span that, you are much older than I am. I'm not that young anymore. But point being is, though, like we have a generation between us, but that's how incredible Paul Simon is.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And he's still, I still love to listen to those albums and pull them out and listen to him and Garfunkel. And it's almost like it's timeless. Their music 30 years from now is still going to be good.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I like. And I got a quick story for you. I mentioned my great uncles. One of them was about 75 years old. He was a drummer and he'd trooped all over. And this is when the Beatles came out and I'm talking to him and he's talking to me. I'm 13, 14 years old. He's talking to me about the Beatles. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, this guy's 75 years old. How does he even know who the Beatles are? And he's saying, but the Beatles, they changed the direction of music. He said, their music is different than anything you've been listening to. And I thought, that's pretty amazing. I've thought of that over the years of how Uncle Babe was that astute, how he just knew music. It was just his life. That was his life. And here he is, at the time I'm looking at him as an old man. Now I'm almost his age. And I'm thinking, he still can talk about the younger generation and what's going on with their music.
Right.
And that's evolution. He had to evolve. He had to just kind of go along with the different styles of music to reach that point. And that's what I think is interesting, is how you can go from the big band era to the Beatles and everything in between and still be in tune with what's going on, not tune it out and say, that's not me. This is what I still like. And I don't know. I don't know that I've ever been able to be that way. I don't know that I am.
Yeah.
But he was, and that was a story that I just always remembered of how an old guy like that could know so much about the current music that teenagers were listening to.
Yeah. I hope I can be that flexible.
Yeah, I know. It's not the easiest thing, I guess, to do.
Well, we've talked a lot about the album, and I feel like we could talk about that forever, but...
Well, I do have one other thing to say about that, though.
Okay, go ahead.
I did not write the song Silent Night.
Obviously, yeah.
I really wish I had it, but I didn't. But the rendition that we did on Silent Night was my favorite rendition of that song And if you remember, when we were in the studio listening to the mix, and we were just getting ready to send the album off, and I listened to that song, and there was no harmony there. You had sung harmony to it at one time when we were, when we were making the album.
Uh-huh.
But for some reason, it didn't get recorded.
Oh.
I said, whoa, wait a minute. That song is going nowhere without that harmony in it. And Mark had something to do. He was kind of in a hurry. And you said, well, I'm not in singing mode right now. I don't think. I said, get in there. Get in there and sing the harmony because you can do it.
Yeah.
And his song isn't going anywhere without it.
Oh.
So Mark called his wife and she said, yeah, we've got time. So you went in there and you sang the harmony on Silent Night on two of the verses. I think you did it in one take. And I can still see you standing there in that studio. You've got the headphones on, you're listening to the song, your eyes are, and you're just doing this. And one take on that song, and you came out of there. So when people of Astoria, which I want to say hi to the people of Astoria, by the way, and thank you for listening to this and for being interested in the CD. When you listen to that song, just listen to that Silent Night, the harmony there. Try and imagine it without that harmony there.
Oh.
And just be thankful that Brianna was able to step in there and just pull it up when she wasn't even in a frame of mind to do it, because it worked.
Silent night, holy night, Son of God, love's pure light, radiant beams from thy holy face, with the dawn of redeeming grace. Jesus, Lord, at thy birth. Jesus, Lord, at thy birth.
You know, that is, I actually didn't remember that. And so I'm really glad that you shared that.
Yeah.
I don't have the best memory, honestly. So I'm really glad that you shared that, because I do love that song. It's another one that I listen to quite a bit around the holidays.
Yeah.
And this past Christmas, again, at 3 months postpartum, I was exhausted. I won't go into details, but the delivery was very traumatic, and it took me a very long time to heal. And on top of that, you have a new baby who needs you. And there was times where she would not settle unless I was singing to her. And then, of course, after hours and hours of rocking late into the night of singing, you get your voice, like I was losing my voice.
Oh, yeah.
And so I turned on Silent Night, and I put that on repeat.
All right.
So all December, I literally got through some of the hardest nights of rocking my baby, because she could hear Mom. It was Mom.
Yeah.
And so how lucky. Not all new moms who are sleep deprived have an album that they can just go click, and then yes, I'm still here, baby.
Yeah.
So yes, that song has saved me in so many ways.
I'm glad it worked for you. That's great.
Before we go, we've been talking for a little while. Before we go, I want to know about your children's books. So you have 2 books. You have Bedtime and My Wild Imagination.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Those are the 2 that I've purchased, and I love them. The poetry in them is beautiful, and the illustrations are incredible. So please, we don't have a ton of time, but please tell me about those.
Okay. Well, these books came about. My wife and I were vacationing in Key West, and I got a message from Bunbury Magazine, a literary magazine in the UK. And they said, congratulations, we are going to publish a couple of poems you submitted to us. And I thought, my God, this has never happened before. So that makes you feel good. But they were just poetry form. There were no illustrations with them. And I started thinking a couple of years after that, I think what I'd like to do with these is find an illustrator and make children's picture books out of them.
Yeah.
And so I found a couple of illustrators. One did bedtime, one did the other one, My Wild Imagination. And I kind of had them both going at the same time. There was an overlap. I started one, then started the other one before one was through. So they came out roughly at the same time. But we put them on the market, and of course, they haven't done anything. They have sold maybe 5 copies. It's kind of like the CD. It's probably sold 10 copies, but it's good.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's good.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you need several hundred copies, I can send them to you. You say,
Well,
I've still got them.
You know, I have made an effort in my life to support artists and even people on the Astoria podcast. You know, I've had some wonderful, generous people who, even throughout this first season, who, you know, have wanted to give me, you know, whether I'm interviewing a woman who bakes cupcakes or, you know, a woman who makes candles, they want to give me these beautiful gifts. And I try to, first of all, not accept them for free. Mm-hmm. And if they absolutely insist, I try and find a way that I can give back to them. Mm-hmm. Because it is very hard to be an artist. And I, as an artist myself growing up, like people do sometimes take advantage of that. And mm-hmm. so, you know, I know that me purchasing those books probably did not pay for the illustration or the publishing and all of the effort and time that you put into it. But like, it's meaningful to me to invest in artists because it, I don't know, I assume it's meaningful to them.
Well, it is. And it's, you know, we appreciate it. And I've done the same thing with people's music. When we've been on vacation or something, you hear someone playing and they've got their CDs there. And so you just, you know, you buy one, just kind of help them out.
Yeah, there was this Jillian Welch. Do you listen to Jillian Welch? Mm-mm. She's a bluegrass player. So Jillian Welch has this song called "Everything Is Free." And the lyrics go, "Everything is free now, that's what they say. Everything I've ever done, I'm gonna give it away. Someone hit the big score, they figured it out, that we're gonna do it anyway, even if it doesn't pay." And, you know, the song goes on, but like, if people want to steal this Christmas album, they can. Yeah. They can log online, they can download it. And as an artist, it is heartbreaking because you put so much of yourself into your work, and then people steal it.
I know.
And like, I've been on the side of a very poor college student who desperately wants to hear the latest thing that Jillian Welch has come out with. Right. You know, but at the same time, like, now that I've lived a little longer, like, even though it's just $5, even though it's just $10, like, it's meaningful to invest. And so, anyway, I think about that. Yeah. So
I know. Yeah, and I've been on both sides of that too, where you think, well, yeah, they're stealing, but at least your music's out there. Right. So I don't.
And then you know, that's what she says. We're going to do it anyway, even if it doesn't pay. And someone hit the big score, you know. Yeah. And there is something about it being out there, and I guess that kind of comes to my last question a little bit about legacy. And you're currently working on capturing or recording a lot of the songs that you have, so that at some point later in your life, if anyone wants to pick them up, they can. And that's something I was able to do with my mom's music. You know, part of doing your album with you is what inspired me and led me to be able to get my mom's music out into the world, which is a whole other story for a whole other time. But, you know, you're currently working on capturing a bunch of songs that you have unfinished. Yeah. And that is a beautiful legacy. I don't know if any of your children do something with music, or maybe your grandchildren might want to do something with music. But can you talk a little bit about the legacy of that and what you're trying to do?
Yeah, what I'm trying to do right now is just making sure that if I've got something that I wanted to record, I have it in a position where it can still be recorded. Instead of just picking up a sheet and saying, okay, here are the words, but my God, it's a song. How does it go? What's the tempo? What's the melody? You know, you don't have a clue. Yeah. And so you've just really got to start from scratch with just the words and say, okay, let's see if we can find music to fit.
Yeah.
Well, what I want to do is just record enough of it to where they know what key I'm singing in. I'm singing the song, so they've got the melody there. And I've got it, the tempo is true enough to where a bass can come in and lay the bass part down, or any musician can come in and overdub onto that song.
Well, and that's what we did with my mom's album.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's where I want to get them. And I guess it is because, you don't know how much time you're going to have to do this.
Yeah.
And voice quality plays a part. And I don't know. I never felt like I was a great singer. I'm not a great singer. I'm not a great musician, but I feel like I can write.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to get. I want to get what I've written down there.
You're an amazing writer. I just want you to know.
Well, thank you. You're an amazing singer.
Thank you.
Okay. I just get it all. They say it takes a village, and it's really, for a song, it does take that much, because it's just a lot more than one person can do.
Well, I'm so glad that you are working actively to capture that to pass on to the future generations. I know, my mother, it was sad because I had sat down to record with her, and then we thought her breast cancer was in remission, and then all of a sudden it wasn't. It had spread to her brain unknowingly, and then she went very fast after that. But at the time that we sat down to record, she was in a good place. We thought the cancer was in remission, and at the end of the recording, I remember asking her, your songs are so good. Have you ever thought that you'd, do more with more writing? And she said, yes, I think that, she wrote a lot in her teenage years, and then she became a mom and things got busy. And, she was in her 50s when she passed away, but life was ever so slightly starting to slow down for her. And I think she really wanted to pick it back up.
Yeah.
And I think about that, about unfinished work. And obviously, like you said, you never know when you're going to go.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that I sat down and recorded those raw tracks with her.
Mm-hmm.
I knew enough about recording to keep the piano and the vocals separate.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was able to take those raw materials after she passed away. I think it was 3 years after she passed away before I was able to go into the studio and work on them. But you have those raw materials, and then I was able to carry on her legacy, which I'm so grateful that I could do.
Yeah.
And now my daughter has something to listen to of her grandparent that she never will get to meet, but in a way she is meeting her because she's hearing that piece of art that came from her soul.
Right.
The soul's speaking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you've got it. You've captured it. So it's there.
Yeah, so I'm glad you're doing it, because your kids are going to love that, okay?
Yeah.
Your kids are going to love it.
Yeah.
And is any of your kids involved in music, or?
No, neither one of them really do anything with it. The grandkids, they're young. The oldest is just going to be 10 in a month. So they take piano lessons. Every time they come over, I've got the guitars just sitting there.
Yeah.
They'll start strumming.
Uh-huh.
They'll just bang on it. But they really do. They've started. You could kind of see it evolve toward they just making noise, just seeing how loud they can get.
Sure.
To you see them kind of strumming and hearing the sounds now.
Yeah.
So over time, I just hope that they are interested enough in it that they pick it up. But if they don't, if all they do is wind up loving music, that'll carry them through a lot. Yeah.
Well, and that's the way I feel about it too. I forget how the conversation went with my mom, but she was like, I always just wondered if any of my kids were going to pick up music, and I was the only one really that took. All of us were forced to sing in church.
Oh, yeah.
But I was the only one who really took to music, and I'm one of 9. So so you had just odds are who is going to pick up the music bug. But aside from that, being able to make an album out of her songs, I was able to when I got married. during the pandemic, a little after the pandemic, I was able to do a little wedding ceremony in Illinois, and I was able to give my mom's album to the family. And they had waited 10 years.
Yeah.
Like, it took me a long time to truly finish the album because it was a very emotional project. But, like, even though they don't play music, you know, I think some of my siblings still do a little piano here and there, but even though they don't actively play music, they still have that piece of mom.
Yeah.
And I got to help keep that legacy alive. And,
Right.
you know, so it's almost like, even if your children don't necessarily make a full-blown album out of what you have, I think just hearing your voice will speak to their hearts in a way that, like, I don't know, like her voice, hearing my mother's voice even now just still, like, kind of, like, just brings me to my knees sometimes. Like, it's so, there's nothing like it. It's like you've captured her essence.
Yeah, it's like a bit of her is still there.
Yeah.
And you still got that. You still got that. You hang on to it. Yep.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna have to let you go. I have a daughter who she's currently going through a lot of separation anxiety, and so having not seeing mom for a while gets her pretty anxious.
Okay.
But this is wonderful. I've missed you.
I know. I miss just hanging out, just being able to get together and say, "Hey, let's do lunch." You know.
Yeah, I know.
I know. Well, if I ever find myself, or if we ever find ourselves back in New York, we'll see if we can't swing over to Astoria and see you.
That's right.
You and Eric and the little one.
Yes. We'll take you to all the best Greek food and Italian food. This place has the best Greek food.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So.
All right. It's been great talking to you.
Well, that's our show. I hope you enjoyed this sneak peek into my past life. For now, the only person I sing to is my little girl. But if you want to hear more from our holiday album, It's Christmas, you can stream it on all major platforms or purchase it through iTunes or Amazon. To learn more about Ray's music or his children's books, visit rminermusic.com. And of course, to make it easy, I've put all these links, including the ones we reference on the show, on astoriapodcast.com. I want to thank you for listening. I hope this episode inspires you to create something and share it with the world. You never know how it might change someone's life. What you do matters. Producing this first season of the Astoria podcast has had its challenges, but getting to know more of my neighbors has been so worth it. You should know we only have one episode of this season left, so tune in next time for a very special series finale. Until then, I'm going to leave you with this song by Ray Miner.
I look and see it's Christmas time again. Gifts to buy and greeting cards to send. Smiles are warm and friendly as Christmas Day draws near. I like the way I feel this time of year. Shop displays and busy days abound. Pretty lights you see all over town. I listen to the carolers sing songs I love to hear. I like the way I feel this time of year. And memories of the season remain from long ago. They mingle with the wonder of all I've yet to know. From down the street, familiar church bells ring. Children peek to see what Santa brings. And those I know and strangers are full of Christmas cheer. I like the way I feel this time of year. It's Christmas time again. Gifts to buy and greeting cards to send. Smiles are warm and friendly as Christmas Day draws near. I like the way I feel this time of year.